Hello, everybody, and welcome to this IT Glue webinar. My name is Andy Elwood. I am the Product Marketing Manager here at Pulseway, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Travis from IT Glue. He's been around longer than IT Glue has and really understands the product and will be able to give us a great overview into the capabilities of IT Glue and how it can help you ensure that you securely protect your customers' assets. Luckily, I won't be talking much. I apologize, I think, for the poor sound quality. I've had some sound issues typical in the last minute or so. So sorry for that. But in the meantime, I will hand you over to Travis.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Andy. And you sound amazing.
Thank
So
you.
don't worry about that. Awesome. Hello, everyone. So today we want to do what's most important and to your customer, and that's their small business IT infrastructure and making sure that it's secure. We know that without technology, many small businesses would screech to a halt, or worse, their sensitive data would become compromised. This, as we know, can lead to disaster. So we know that you as IT professionals need to ensure that you're protecting your clients, their assets, and all the services that you are managing for them. So thanks again, Andy, for the great introduction. My name's Travis. I'm one of the sales engineers here at IT Glue. I've been with the company for just over 4 years now. So I've had a couple of different roles, all the way from supporting our product to helping onboard people. And now I get to do presentations like this and help explain some of the technical details of what our product does and how it can benefit MSPs just like you guys. So during today's presentation, I want to take you through a few different areas. I want to first take you through what the real problem we see with time waste and how that can impact your bottom line in general. And then we're going to shift focuses and talk about security and how there are 6 pillars to the IT Glue Security Foundation that we believe that any documentation should be captured in. So, and then I'm also going to talk about how IT Glue secures this type of information. And then we'll talk a little bit more about how IT Glue and Pulseway come together. And then if we have some time, I'm going to share a few other popular features of these solutions so that you guys have a really round understanding of what IT Glue is and how it can help you. You may notice that we are using Zoom today. There are 2 options down in the bottom left. So first, there is a question Q&A box that you can ask questions to. There is also a chat function where you're happy to just comment with us. And then if we do have any information to share with you, we will also be broadcasting it out in the chat option. All right, so let's jump in. As we know, the MSP industry is continuing to grow at a fast and steady pace. Even though we've seen a little bit of economic change in the past year, we know that this is going to continue going into the future as technology transformation continues to happen in the small to medium business. We know that there are a lot of opportunities for competitors to come up into your space by offering technology services because they are likely also realizing that the small businesses that are in their communities are seeing tremendous growth in having to move everything to technology. Especially during this year, during the pandemic, we've seen that all small businesses, in order to adapt to these changes, had to take on projects that maybe they didn't think they would do, like moving everything online, moving all of their servers to the cloud. You can think of all the different SaaS applications that have also come about now, online ordering for restaurants and online booking for dentists. Just things like that are really starting to show up to people who may want to come into the managed services space and could potentially eat away at your potential to grow. As demand increases for technology service providers like managed service providers, it's going to become more competitive. New managed service providers that are launching today are going to have modern stacks, processes, and approaches to doing business that is going to be, cloud first and putting those types of technologies at the forefront of their stack as opposed to some of the legacy work that some other providers in this space may be doing in terms of like break fix or providing a per hour billing model. What we've recently discovered is that the CompTIA reports that about 40% of people in the channel universe are planning to retire by 2027. So that means that M&A activity is also going to continue to increase as well. So this means that the professionalism that is going to happen inside the managed services space is going to need to ramp up very quickly and come towards modern stacks, attention to process, and laying the groundwork to build a business that is able to be sold or merged with another one and or scale up so that they can support their retirement goals. What this means when we put all these options together is that this means that this market is increasingly becoming more mature. MSPs that are not moving to quickly raise their games will soon face competitors in their space that are going to be available at a fraction of the cost. So what does this have to do with IT Glue, and how is this going to help you build that foundation so that way you are able to scale and compete at that level? So why IT Glue? Well, IT Glue is to stop this from happening, where you have all this information either scattered on your desk, or maybe this is a depiction of what you see inside of your head right now. You have all this information that's stored there, but you can't make it accessible to anyone else in the business. This is what we call freeing minds. And this is our core purpose here at IT Glue, is to help get that knowledge that's trapped inside of your heads, or the knowledge of where everything is in disparate systems, and put them in one centralized place that makes it easy for everyone on your team to get access to that info. So what IT Glue is a structured and centralized documentation system. So right now you may be storing information inside of Word documents, inside of a wiki, SharePoint. You might be using a separate password manager, or storing things inside of ticket notes. So what IT Glue aims to do is to centralize all this information and then also standardize it so that way you know where it is for each of your customers. We also support the modern stack that we are mentioning here and supporting different integrations to pull that data in. Now, one of the other areas that comes into documentation is our standard operating procedures. Now, this is likely what has changed a lot over the past 6 to 8 months or so. Having this documented in a central place and making a culture of documentation inside of your organization is going to help eliminate technician waste. IT Glue was actually founded based on this very principle. Our founder was an MSP owner, and he came out onto the into the pit, so to speak, of the tech work floor, and noticed that there were 2 or 3 people huddled around one desk trying to solve a problem. They were asking each other what they saw when they were last on site at this customer and what their opinion was on how they should fix it. He thought this is not making him look very good in terms of his numbers, because now he has 3 people spending time fixing one issue that should be completed within 10-15 minutes and then moved on to the next one. So he saw that this waste was taking a lot of time out of his business, and he ended up paying a lot of money in salary and lost productivity that he wasn't seeing able to grow his business and bring on more customers. So that's how IT Glue was started, as he recognized that the lack of information sharing was a main factor in this wasted time. What we know is that wasted time actually impacts all of us. So it's not just for technicians, but anyone who works with information is going to see a loss in productivity. Sometimes upwards of 20% or more are going to see productivity, or 20% of productivity is going to be lost in terms of information not being in the right place or being out of date. At IT Glue, like I mentioned, we've grown. And so we started back from that one MSP back in 2012, 2013, and then went to market. And now we have over 9,000 customers, and we have over 200,000 IT professionals utilizing our solution every single day to access centralized and secured information. Now, if you're curious about how much waste is happening inside of your business, you can head over to itglue.com/waste and just fill out a quick calculator to see how much salary you are wasting in time. All you need to do is just put in the percentage of time that you think that you spend wasting due to bad documentation. If you're, fairly good, you think you have a fairly good documentation, might be lower down to this end. Or if you know that your systems are very spread apart, you might be closer up here, and you can adjust the sliders and put in your team size to get that total staff cost here. All right, again, so it's itglue.com/waste. So how does IT Glue solve this? Well, some people might say, well, you can just start up a new Excel sheet and create all of these different tabs on the bottom with all of these different pieces of info. But what makes IT Glue different is that we break it down into 3 components, because we realize that we can't fit all the information into one type, either moving it all towards Word documents or Excel documents or database. So we break it down into these 3 areas. We start with our building blocks at the bottom right here. This is information that you likely already have in a lot of other systems. And so we have integrations that are going to pull in all these building blocks. Building blocks include things like hardware assets, passwords, contact information, address information. All this info we need just to run a business in general in terms of what they have and who they are. We then look at structural information. This is how all those building blocks work together to form the services that they are asking us to manage for them. No longer do we just care about patching servers and deploying new workstations. What our customers care about is understanding how all those servers and workstations and printers and access points all work together to make their business successful. So this is going to include services like backup or email or internet and network access. Having this documented in a structured way is going to provide a lot of value and make it easy for you guys to access. And then finally, that procedural information. This is going to help make your team even more efficient, as no matter if it's one of your new junior technicians or your senior technicians, they're going to know exactly what it is that they need to do in order to solve a problem when it arises. Like I mentioned, we have different integrations that are going to help build this info. So we start with your professional services automation tool, which contains your CRM info. We have your backup and disaster recovery tool. It's going to put some info in from that tool, as well as your remote monitoring and management tool, like your Pulseway setup, that is going to provide some of that asset information. And then finally, you have other IT Glue information that makes the outer part of this circle. IT Glue is going to help you in 3 key areas. It's going to make your team more powerful by increasing efficiency and the accuracy of what it is that they do on a day-to-day basis. This is going to mean that you see faster service and fewer errors, which is going to make your customers more happy and more likely to purchase additional services from you as you roll those out. And of course, by having lower costs, meaning that your team is more efficient, you're able to increase the revenue that you make because you're able to bring on more customers without necessarily having to get more resources, because those resources that you have right now are going to be operating more efficiently. Now, what we find is that there is a shift in what is happening on the security landscape. So everything that we've talked about so far is very important about having a documentation system in general. But what we used to think was that cybersecurity attacks were hitting the large enterprises. However, what we're finding now is that they are starting to attack the SMB space, and more importantly, they are going as to the managed service provider in general. Having rock solid security for yourself is becoming even more crucial in order for you to protect your customers. It's interesting to report that in the 2019 Verizon breach report, 43% of all cyber breaches were in the small to medium-sized space, which is becoming an even larger part as opposed to the larger enterprises like the Target attack and the Home Depot attack that we've been used to hearing in the early 2010s. We're happy to see that the majority of managed service providers are actually recognizing this, as in our 2020 benchmark survey, you told us that cybersecurity awareness and disaster recovery were some of the hottest new revenue opportunities for you as a managed service business. What's great is that the umbrella term security as a service is also trending as well. So that means that MSPs are taking a holistic approach to protecting their clients across the entire attack surface. Also, as a side note, this 2020 benchmark report also includes a lot of other important information about the industry. So I encourage you to just quickly Google that. Just head over to itglue.com and look for Global Benchmark Report as well. So what else is out there? Well, we know that having disaster recovery services and having cybersecurity awareness training is really important. What we know is that because managed service providers are ultimately becoming part of the attack surface and seen as the front line to this, they are going to contain a lot of information about the customer that could be used in a malicious way. So this is where IT Glue comes into play as well, because the information that you have on your customer is the most important thing to protecting them. You hold the keys to the castle. And so how do you protect this information? Keeping it inside of SharePoint or Word files on your desktop is no longer acceptable in this current security landscape. So you need to look at tools that are going to provide you with certain pillars of security. What we know is that there are certain areas you need to protect it from all different angles. At IT Glue, we have a couple of different areas that we attack this in. This includes everything from our multi-factor authentication to get access to secure information. The IT Glue Vault, which enables an additional layer of encryption, immutable audit logs, as well as user permission to control who has access to what. And also our entire organization is SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, which means how we run our business, everything from what I do in order to present to you today, down to how we release new updates to our software, and how our support team engage with you is controlled and audited on a regular basis to ensure that we don't have access to data that you guys are storing, and that we treat your information with the utmost confidentiality. So I want to take you through some of these different areas of security and what you should look for when you are considering different tools in your stack, especially a documentation tool that's containing such important information. Now, multi-factor authentication, or sometimes referred to as 2FA, is becoming more and more prevalent. So IT Glue as a platform can require that you have your users sign in with multi-factor authentication before they sign in to access this information. But what we also find is that passwords are being kept inside of IT Glue at an extremely high rate, which is great to see because we want you using a very secure password manager. Of our almost 9,000 partners, over 7,000 of them are documenting the vast majority of their passwords using our solution. And that means we have over 7.7 million passwords stored across our entire customer base. So, but what's happening, we're seeing with these over these 7 million passwords, is that these passwords are also requiring access to multi-factor authentication. So what that means is that these credentials is coming down to your customer portals as well. Because of this, you also now need to understand how to multi-factor into these types of credentials. So this is why IT Glue now supports one-time password or MFA generation for shared service accounts. So what this means is that if you, for example, support Office 365 for your customers, instead of having to have a cell phone dedicated to the office or tap someone on the shoulder to get the MFA code in order to log into that customer's Microsoft 365 panel, you can actually store that inside of IT Glue along with the actual credential. This means no longer tapping people on the shoulder or texting people to get the MFA code. It's stored in the exact same secure place that you have access to the credential. This password is also available inside of our Chrome extension and Edge extension, as well as our iOS and Android apps, so that you can get access to these OTP codes no matter where you are and whatever website you're signing into. Now, you may think that, well, we have even more critical information that's being stored inside the system. This is why we have client-side decryption, or what we call IT Glue Vault. This means that although you have very sensitive information in here, you are in control of what the encryption key is. That means that the IT Glue system, including our secure infrastructure in AWS, your internet service provider, or anyone along that wire, is going to be able to access the different pieces needed to decrypt your passwords. Some people also call this host-proof hosting. So how this works is that every time that you need to enter in and decrypt a password, that decryption occurs actually on your computer by entering your passphrase, which makes up part of the encryption key. This means that no one else besides you in front of your computer is going to be able to decrypt or access this information. This is critical for ensuring that the security is met, and there are also different compliance measures that are require this type of security for different types of credentials. I will note that this is not a different way of changing permissions, as different users will be able to access the vault, provided they have security permissions to access the that part of the infrastructure, including access to that password. What this means is that because individuals have access to these passphrases, is that it's not shared with other people in the organization. Each user has their own part of the encryption key. This means that if someone departs your organization, you don't need to rotate the organizational encryption key and re-encrypt everything. This is different than some other ways that this is implemented. So if you look up host-proof hosting and you want to know a little bit more about this, typically you'll see that the passphrase is shared, or a shared secret, very similar to how you set up a VPN connection, where we're actually using individual passphrases. This is one of the subject matter experts that we consulted when we were developing this platform. We know that there's a lot of different ways that host-proof hosting can be set up across different password managers. And so we consulted with different people like Brian from digital forensics at InfoSec in Chicago about what this solution looks like in comparison to other tools that are out there. So this is a quick screenshot to show you what this looks like. We're inside the password vault right now, and you just have to enter in your part of your encryption key in order to decrypt any of the passwords that I've denoted as being extra sensitive. Now, I mentioned how this affects our user permissions as well. User permissions operate separately, and the vault is just that encryption layer. This means that your per password controls still exist. So all assets in IT Glue beyond just passwords have the ability for you to decide whether a certain user or a certain group of users have access to that asset. This means that you can set up role-based access, such as your level 1 technicians, your level 3, your account managers, or your VCIOs. You know that you can also have maybe a documentation champion or an admin to make sure that those people only see what they need to see. Having this individual control means that you have a lot of granularity in ensuring that passwords and information is only accessible by the people that you need, but you also have the ability to see this as an admin and give group access to people so that it's not a burden to give people what they need to access. You can also do this in a group setting, like I mentioned, by using folders. So now available if you've looked at IT Glue in the past, and this is a new feature that we have, where you can set password folders and then set the security. So maybe you have a different folder of passwords for all your senior technicians. You can either bulk edit those security settings, or you could just drag and drop them into a folder and then apply that setting at the folder level in order to cascade that all down. Our next pillar we want to talk about is single sign-on. Single sign-on, or SSO, is becoming more and more popular for us to use internally as managed service providers, but also the ability to give it to your end customer for them to be able to not have as many passwords to remember. What single sign-on is it allows you to use one set of credentials, so that way you don't have to have 4 different sets of credentials that are going to, as much as we want to say that they're going to be randomizing different passwords among them, we know that there are some times we're going to use the same password twice. So single sign-on is just one piece of the puzzle, a part of your broader access management practices. And this is going to help bring convenience to your team, but also can be a part of your security fabric. IT Glue integrates with different single sign-on providers that support SAML 2.0, as well as JWT. So if you already have an SSO provider like ADFS or Azure AD, you're going to be able to use those same credentials to sign into IT Glue. Now, what we know is that there are also your customers who have access to single sign-on solutions. We know that documentation is not just a one-way street, and there is also your customers who are going to need access to see the documentation that you have on their infrastructure. One of the other add-on solutions that we have is what we call MyGlue. And MyGlue allows you to share only what the customer needs to access from their documentation to them. MyGlue also supports single sign-on so that you can connect their MyGlue account to whatever identity provider that you're providing for them, whether that be Azure AD, Duo, Okta, OneLogin, or Passly. Now, auditing. Now, this is a word that we all don't want to have to be audited, but it is a time that does come up, and it is really important that your systems have the appropriate audit logs so that you know what is happening to the data, especially your sensitive documentation. Auditing gets you out of a jam, if you ever have that, by giving you that paper trail of what's been happening inside your documentation. So auditing also helps you to enforce best practices inside the documentation, as you can see who is updating things as who is not. IT Glue has an auditing feature, and that means that anytime anyone views information, updates information, or deletes information inside of the system, you'll be able to review the audit to see what they did, when they did it, and where they did it from. Our audit logs also help to generate reports on what has been accessed and what may need to be changed if you ever need to depart an employee from your organization. Now, auditing is also a big part of compliance. So whether you may need those audit logs for yourself, or if you're working with customers in regulated industries, you may need those audit logs. But there is also different compliance measures that require the tools that you use to be compliant in their own areas. So what I mean by this is certain tools that store sensitive information, like the emails that you receive from your customer, or the documentation and passwords that you store for them, are going to need to be stored in a system that is recognized as compliant. At IT Glue, we have elected to take the SOC 2 Type 2 compliance as our meaning for compliance measurement. What we do is we do a lot of different areas. As I mentioned, SOC 2 covers everything from how I'm talking to you today, to how you interact with our support team, to how we develop new code. We ensure first off, that our infrastructure is secured with industry-leading tools by providing you with the best-in-class security with the features that AWS provides, that is tested by third parties. The most important part about compliance, though, is the processes that are in line that we run on a day-to-day basis, and those processes are audited by these third parties. SOC 2 Type 2 is a regularly reviewed process and has strict adherence for ourselves here at IT Glue, ensuring that the operation and uptime of our platform ensures peace of mind for partners like yourself. Now, we know that integrating all these different tools together is something that you're likely thinking is going to be quite cumbersome. Well, that's not the goal of here. So with IT Glue and Pulseway, we are able to bring different pieces of information together, so that way you're not stuck having to manually document everything. This means that your enrolled Pulseway infrastructure, including workstations and servers, are going to be able to be brought into IT Glue as devices. So that means you can start storing documentation against them, like the password to sign into it, or the procedure you need to take when you're working with a certain server. This is also going to keep these systems up to date, so that way if the IP address changes, or you upgrade the OS on it, or as the disk space utilization changes, you'll have that information in a single source of truth right inside of IT Glue. This is going to ensure that you have complete coverage of your network, so that way any information that is beyond that is going to be in one system, such as your switches, internet access, controls as well. By having these different integrations, we are now going to have replace and get rid of this exclusive manual effort that you are probably working with now by updating your spreadsheets or having to look through old tickets. So this is what IT Glue looks like in case you haven't seen a screenshot before. This is where we show you all your different assets. So in this case, we have a web server that's running server 2012, and we can see that Pulseway is updating information, like when it was last seen online, as well as the disk usage and updating the CPU, RAM, serial number, etc. Then you can store additional details on the right, like I mentioned, by adding things such as attachments of the picture of this device. You could add in a related item to a password or a document or an SSL certificate that is installed on it. All those different related items are going to help to start build the different webs of information that you have, and is really going to make this a really cool platform for you to work inside of day in and day out. If you want more information on what data specifically is going to come in, we have a knowledge base article available that you to read, as well as when you connect with your sales rep or your account manager, we are going to help explain this even further, so that way you know exactly how to get to this info and how exactly it's going to work inside of your business. Now, what we find is that a lot of our customers who are utilizing systems like this are seeing a huge increase in operational efficiency, because they are able to have this information in a central place, and they know that it's being kept up to date automatically. You can take this even further by utilizing our open API. So maybe you're someone who is familiar with running PowerShell scripts, and you know that you have information in other systems you want to push outside of Pulseway into IT Glue. You can set up your own automations to make you even more efficient. This allows you to take data out of IT Glue, transform it, update it from different systems, and then push it back into IT Glue. Having this open API means that you're welcome to integrate with any system that you'd like. Some of the scripts that I've seen written include updating information from a Ubiquity or Unify cloud controller. I also see information coming in from Windows servers or file servers or from Active Directory servers. So there's a lot of info that we can pull in and that you have a lot of control on. I do want to take you through a couple other popular features for those of you who are interested in learning a little bit more about IT Glue and what it is that we have to offer. So like I mentioned, we have a lot of customers and a lot of them are actually using another feature of our solution called checklists. This is where we can tie different parts of your infrastructure, such as the different servers you need to work with or the different passwords you need, to a step-by-step instructions. They're not complex. They're not like your big project plans that you're going to create in some project management tool. The idea is that they're just really simple for you to say, I want this person to complete this step, and then this person to complete this other step. Some of our most popular checklists include things that you guys do all the time that you need to standardize and make sure are delivered exactly the same every time. Such as when one of your customers brings on a new user to their company. When you bring on a new customer to yourself and you're documenting everything about their infrastructure and getting them set up to provide managed services. Or in the opposite case, where you have a customer that is leaving you and going over to another IT provider, what are some of the things that you're able to provide for them? Some other examples include new workstation setups, account check-ins, or deploying new servers or infrastructure and projects. These checklists are really simple to set up, and so you don't have to worry about being a project manager expert in order to do this. I mentioned this a little bit, but I also wanted to come back to this because this is a really unknown feature of our platform. With our Chrome and Edge extension, that means that those passwords that you're storing and that you have access to can be automatically filled in on websites that you visit. So whether you're signing into the Microsoft portal, the Meraki dashboard, or even into your Pulseway system, you're going to be able to get that password and have it injected automatically. What this also means is that we're extending IT Glue to any web page that you visit. No matter if you're working in the Azure portal or you're looking at a vendor website, you're going to be able to click that button and call up an IT Glue search to search your entire documentation library, all without having to switch to another tab in order to look at IT Glue. Our Chrome extension is also now available for the Chromium version of Microsoft Edge. So two of the most popular browsers are able to access IT Glue information on any web page. We also integrate with the newly rebranded Microsoft Office, or Office 365 as it's previously known. What this means is that we know that adopting new tools can be challenging. So you may have a lot of documentation that's currently stored in Word documents or Excel files. We're going to continue to support those. So that means that you can just drag and drop your existing Word documents into IT Glue and they'll retain their native format. This means that you're able to actually open up documents and edit them just by clicking a button. And provided that you have a Microsoft 365 license that supports the web version of Office, you're going to be able to work with your already paid for license of Excel to work on these documents. No longer do you need to grab a file from the SharePoint, check it out, make the changes, re-upload the changes. Everything is going to be saved in real time. And as you collaborate on these Excel documents, you're all going to be able to see each other's changes. Of course, we do also support if you want to migrate that information into the IT Glue format. So if you have documentation currently stored in Word documents, we can convert that into IT Glue documents so you can continue to or start to use our powerful editor to access and update this documentation. Now, we know that some people really do like to see their information written on paper. So although IT Glue is going to put this into a system that is going to be very interactive and kept up to date, we know that there's customers and those in the managed services space that like to go through the printed copy of their documentation. especially when you're doing things like quarterly business reviews. So you can, using all this information that you have in IT Glue, you can actually generate what we call a runbook. And this is going to include a complete PDF package of everything you have documented for this customer. This is also going to make it really easy for if you have to offboard a customer and hand it off to another service provider. You can just schedule this runbook to run and then come back after your cup of coffee, and then you're going to have all the information for them to hand off to the new provider, or if for any other reason you need that printed copy. This is also a great way to keep an offline copy of your documentation should you be anywhere that you do not have access to your computer or the internet to be able to access your IT Glue portal. Just in quick summary, there is a lot of things that we're able to do to make this documentation accessible. So here I have a diagram of, or a quick form showing you how our IT Glue extension works, so that you can fill in passwords on different websites that you visit. This experience is also going to be very similar on the mobile app as well. And finally, we have those runbooks that is really going to make it easy for you to see your documentation in the physical form if that's what you're into. I also wanted to quickly show you how to drag and drop and add documentation in there. So this PDF file, we can just drop it into these different folders here, or if I have any of these Word documents, anything like that, I just drag and drop them in. They're going to stay in their native format, and then if there are Word or Excel documents or PowerPoint documents, you can edit them right from there. This makes it really easy to get up to speed and utilizing the system. I did want to share a few other details about how we structure our solution and how it is priced. So you can see our list pricing available at itglue.com/pricing. We have 3 different tiers available, and the way we price it out is based on how many users that need access to all of your clients. So this would typically be the number of technicians you have, including any technical people on like a VCIO or account manager as well. So even though we have this as our list pricing, we also do have some special Pulseway promotions that are available on our Select and Enterprise plan. You'll notice that in this one here, we are reducing the minimum users that are required to get started in this plan. So you can get started with just 2 users or even just 1 at the enterprise level. So if you are a smaller team and you're looking to grow, this is a great way to get all that information that's in your head into a system. So that way, when your new technicians come on board, you can just add them as a user and they'll have access to all that info. We also know that getting set up is going to, can be a little bit daunting, and you may think that it's going to take some while to get started. Well, we do have our onboarding packages available, and we are also providing this at a discounted rate for those of you attending this webinar. This is typically between $500 to $1,200 that we charge for our onboarding, depending on the level that you choose, and we are discounting this down to $99. Again, that is in US dollars. With that said, if you did express interest in wanting to know a little bit more about IT Glue, we will be reaching out to talk more about the pricing and the details on the offer, as well as be able to answer any specific questions about how IT Glue integrates into your system. But I do want to turn it over to a quick section here to see if we have any questions that I can help answer right now.
Thanks, Travis. That was very good, very interesting. I see there's one question there about a Firefox browser extension.
Yeah, so great question. So right now we don't have a Firefox extension. This is mostly just because of the utilization. So the majority of our users that work with IT Glue are using Chrome or Edge, but we will in the future have to develop a Firefox extension because I do know that that browser is becoming more and more popular. I don't have a timeline on when that'll be available right now, but stay tuned.
Okay, I would just like to add something on the Pulseway pricing. That pricing is available only through your Pulseway rep. So if you talk to them, then you can avail of that pricing. But if there are no more questions, if you think of any questions, by all means, send them to me, and I'll pass them on to Travis. We'll get an answer for you if you think of anything after the fact. But if there is no more questions, I'd like to thank Travis once again for that, and thank you all for attending.
Thank you so much for hosting. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.